Welcome to the Coaches Spotlight series on Fitlete Radio. My name is George McGon III. Now let's meet our coach.
My name is Bryce MacArthur, and I've been personal training now for probably about 7 years or so, which is hard to believe that it's been almost a decade of training, right? The people that I help people who are really stuck in a start-stop cycle in their lives. And I help them build a body and a life that they can actually maintain and sustain through providing them with structure, systems, and personalized support. Um, I went to school at NAIT, which is a college here in Edmonton. It was a 2-year diploma. I then went on to pursue my CSEP-CPT upon completion of that. And a lot of my education is through Prescript and other mentoring opportunities as well.
While there might be many, take a moment to think about all you've done as a coach and tell me one of your favorite moments as a coach in your career or practice that you have. It doesn't have to be one specific person, place, or thing, but maybe some realization or reaffirming moment you experienced because you were someone's coach.
Oh man, favorite moments as a coach. Hey, I have to think about that one. Um, this probably goes way back to when I was actually not a personal trainer or coach yet. I was working out with a good friend of mine at the time, and he had been working out with me at the home gym, kind of like the Bat Cave of the Bryce lore or origin story, if you will. um, and I think at this point in time, he'd been officially down about 70 or 80 pounds or so. And I think it really struck me then and there, when he told me how impactful it was having my guidance and my support in his journey and in his process, that I really enjoyed this. And I think from there, that's when I truly knew that I wanted to do this as a career. I didn't go straight into coaching then, but I think in the back of my mind, I always knew that this was my calling, if you will.
To me, real coaches join the industry with the best intentions. Helping people is pretty much at the core of their mission. Over time and with some new experiences, some further learning, some of these beliefs, methods, techniques, and the general approaches to how we coach can change. No one's perfect when we start. Nobody has the perfect system, especially in the beginning. What's something you used to believe as a new coach, but no longer do, or no longer see as important in your practice as a coach?
So when I first got into coaching, I was pretty big into powerlifting myself, and I had a strong belief that the clientele that I helped and that I supported also needed to barbell bench, barbell squat, barbell deadlift. But as I got more educated, worked with a lot of people that are way smarter than me, I realized that not everybody needs to be fit into this certain criteria and that everyone needs to do these barbell movements and that they're actually quite limiting by nature and that you can still give somebody a very similar response from doing movements that are similar by nature. Instead of doing a barbell back squat, you could do a hack squat. You could do a pendulum squat. You could do a goblet squat. Instead of doing a barbell bench press, you could do dumbbell chest press. You could do a cable chest press, machine, push-ups, right? Instead of deadlifts, you could do a hip hinge. You could do a B stance RDL. You could do a single leg RDL, right? A glute bridge. End of the day, we're just looking to increase somebody's baseline level of strength and improve somebody's quality of life and living. And I think the belief that I had before of everybody needing to get really strong underneath the barbell was strongly attached to my beliefs and my interests. But I guess as I've grown and as I've changed, I've realized that every client is significantly different, right? Their needs and their demands. And it's good to meet them where they're at and ultimately cater the plan accordingly to them and to where they're trying to go with their goals.
I've been a coach for about 15 years now, and I can tell you new clients, they come from anywhere, especially nowadays with so much exposure for a business being online and on social platforms. In my career as a personal trainer, I've encountered people in consults who are looking for help, but then say things like, I think I'll get a personal trainer when I'm in better shape. This used to really confuse me. How do you handle prospective clients who've reached out to you for help but don't feel or believe they're ready for your coaching yet?
Oh man, this is a good question. Over the years, my process has changed immensely, and I think that just comes with time and experience. But when I first started coaching, I didn't really have a very official or thorough intake process. It'd be like a really quick phone call where I would take some notes down and chat with them, and they would either sign up or they wouldn't. And I wouldn't really at the time know what to do if they said no. I would just be like, okay, and then just kind of hang up. But as I've gotten more experienced and everything, I've realized that you have to have a pretty thorough intake process, collecting all the data that you need from them, and really taking like getting a good understanding of what this person is like looking for. And it kind of ties into this idea of also like pre-validation. So to expand upon that, it's making sure that they have a really good understanding of who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Like it's giving them a really crystal clear idea of that, because then they can really trust you and they can feel comfortable with making that decision, right? But end of the day, like you can't force someone to feel ready. And from what I've experienced working in this a long time too, a lot of the objections that we face are somebody's own limitations and limiting self beliefs and everything. And they're in their own way, right? And you can only do so much. Like you can try to get them to understand the risks of waiting, of not taking action, and you can try to show them the benefits, the plethora of benefits of taking action and working with the coach. But end of the day, sometimes you just have to let people go. And I think something really important to also note is be okay with like referring somebody out too. If just because you're not a good fit for them doesn't mean that they don't need help. And it doesn't mean that somebody that you know that's close to you or works closely with you might not be a good fit for them. So I think it's just a matter of like detaching from your ego a little bit and realizing that the most important thing is getting this person help, even if it's not with you.
I think being a coach is really unique, and often the methods and systems we use are pretty specific to the person we're working with. We meet people who sit all across this range of being quote unquote bought into the process, and it doesn't always show itself in the initial stages of building a relationship between client and coach. When clients show some resistance to following your advice, how do you handle that situation?
This is a good question too. I think something that is really important to understand is that everybody is going to be receptive to different coaching styles. And sometimes you have to be a little bit of a chameleon and kind of tailor your approach based off of the person that you're speaking to. Some people are going to be very numbers focused. Some people are going to be very like feeling based and a little bit more emotional. And you have to kind of understand, like, when you sign somebody up and when you're working with them, like, how they receive criticism, how they receive feedback, and the communication style you kind of have to work with when you're helping them. And likely, from what I found, is if there's resistance with the advice that you're giving, sometimes it's best just to like let them do it. And it sounds like really counterintuitive, I know. But sometimes I always say like experience is the best teacher. And you can express your concerns, you can express your thoughts, and you can express an alternative opinion or suggestion. But if they're feeling really drawn to trying something out, sometimes the best thing to do is just let them try it. And then they can come back to you after, they can tell you about the experience, then you can talk about it, right? Because then you have experience, you have data, um, and they're likely going to be a little bit more receptive to it in general. But if it's more of an issue when it comes to like the workout plan, if it comes to the nutrition plan or whatever it might be, I think something that's really important to think about too is making sure that it correlates to their goals. You have to be able to connect the dots. If you're trying to give somebody advice, but they don't really understand what the advice is doing for them, then I feel like adherence will naturally drop off. So they have to see the value in what you're saying for them to do.
Simply because of the nature of what we do as coaches, we're going to meet and work with people at various stages in their personal lives and even careers. Without sacrificing a lot of the results, how do you help clients balance some of these really aspirational goals with other life priorities that might create roadblocks or bring conflict?
This is also a very good question. And I think when people start working out, they're kind of under the impression that fitness needs to consume your entire life. But I'm a big advocate for finding whatever works and putting it into your schedule. So if like the very first thing I ask somebody new is like, hey, right now at this point in time, currently, how many days can you get to the gym per week? If they're like, oh, I can do 3. Awesome. Okay. Are you able to commit to the mornings or to the evenings? Oh, I'm able to commit to the evenings because I don't know if I can do the mornings. Okay, awesome. How long do you have in the evenings after work before you have to go home? Probably 45 minutes. Okay, sweet. I'm going to make you a workout program for 45 minutes 3 times a week. And you're going to follow that for the next 4 to 8 weeks. And if you're able to stick with it, we can then talk about increasing the frequency on it. I think that people come into this with a really aggressive all or nothing mentality. And ultimately, that's what burns people out. They feel this guilt for not being able to follow through on these incredibly high and unsustainable targets that they set or the coach set for them. When in reality, consistency compounds, adherence is king, right? So their ability to stick to it. And that's the most important thing for building confidence and belief in oneself over time is them being able to do the damn thing over and over and over again. Doesn't matter how perfect the plan is, if the client can't stick with it, doesn't matter.
I'm building Fitlete and the resource nexus for coaches and personal trainers to consistently preach a single message that continual learning is essential and it has compounding benefits for a lifelong career in this industry. What's one piece of valuable advice you give to aspiring coaches or coaches who have been in the game for a little bit but have stalled in their career?
Oh man, one piece of advice for a new coach. Eh? Um, so over my years of doing this, there's been one thing that I've heard that really stuck, and I think it sticks because it was me for a while, and it was the Dunning Kruger effect, and it was the whole idea of being in a place where you feel that you know everything, but in reality, you don't know anything. And that was me when I came out of school. I came out of school, I was on a little bit of a high horse because I went to college. I had a 2 year diploma, and I thought I had a one up on people. But I learned very quickly and harshly that education on paper isn't everything, and that there are a lot of fantastic coaches that could teach me a whole lot that on paper maybe didn't have the same credentials as me. And the whole idea behind this is to really come into this career with a white belt mentality. So come into this feeling like you don't really know anything and being open to the idea of learning more, learning from your mistakes, learning from the things that you did well, learning from people around you, utilizing resources, and trying to sharpen your tools and just be a better coach, right? I think as soon as you get into a place where you are okay with what you know, then you're losing. So, the big piece of advice for any new coach is to keep an open mind and always be willing to invest in yourself and your future.
That's all for this episode. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of this great info about yourself and what you do as a coach. I'm glad I got to know you a little bit more through this episode, and I'm glad some listeners got to know you for the very first time through this show. All your info is in the show notes, so anyone who's listening out there wants to stay in touch, please visit those show notes to find that information and reach out to them at any point. If you want to learn a little bit more about Fitlete and our resource nexus for coaches and personal trainers, visit fitlete.com. That's fitlete.com. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.